Hello and welcome back to another elementary behavior analysis help video. Today I'm going to be going over an activity that will show us if things are reinforcers or punishers. So I'm going to go over just a brief definition of reinforcement and punishment and a few examples of things that could be both reinforcing or punishing and why they may be that way. So first, reinforcement is when a behavior is strengthened by the consequence that follows and is therefore more likely to occur again in the future. Punishment, on the other hand, is when a behavior is weakened by the consequence that follows and is therefore less likely to occur again in the future. So first I'm going to go through our ABCs since we will be using those in our activity. So A stands for antecedent. This is the stimulus or event that comes before a behavior. B stands for behavior, and this is the action that we are looking at. And C is consequence, or the stimulus or event that occurs after the behavior. Okay, so we're going to go through 4 examples in this video. Of course, there are just so many examples that you could go through. Really, the possibilities are endless, but these are the ones that I'm going to go through, and these specifically are consequences. So we're going to look at how these consequences could be, even the same ones can be reinforcing for someone in one case and punishing for someone in another. So we're going to kind of mess with the antecedents and the behaviors that come before and how that could change it. So at this point, you could pause it and try to work through these yourself. Of course, the examples that I give are probably going to turn out a little bit different, but you could try to work through them yourself, and you can also try again after we go through these examples and see if you could come up with other antecedents and behaviors. So the first one we're going to go through is yelling. This is one that I think at first glance maybe it seems like a punishment, but this may not be the case for everyone, and it may not be the case for every situation. So for our first example, let's say we have the antecedent of a child being alone in his room, and then the behavior that he engages in is breaking a vase, and the consequence is that he gets yelled at by mom. So in this example, this might actually be reinforcing for the child because he got attention after being alone in his room all day. Maybe some people would think that this would be a punishment, and even parents at times think that this would be a punishment, but perhaps this child was just really lonely, and even though yelling might not be the ideal attention, it did give him some attention. So he would be more likely to engage in this behavior in the future. In another example, let's say there's a child that has a test, and that is the antecedent, and the behavior is that he plays a game, and in this case, he plays the game instead of studying. And the consequence is that he gets yelled at, either by a parent noticing that he did this, or maybe because he failed. But either way, the consequence for this behavior is that he gets yelled at. Well, for this child, maybe this is punishing because he doesn't like to be yelled at, and therefore, in the future, he'd be less likely to engage in this behavior. Okay, so for our next example, we have a Justin Bieber concert. So the antecedent in the first example is that your room is dirty. And then the behavior that you engage in is cleaning your room. And the consequence to this is that your parents give you tickets to a Justin Bieber concert. Now this one might be a little bit unrealistic. I think it would require some very generous parents, but we're just going to go through this example anyway. So this would be reinforcing for you because you're a big Justin Bieber fan and you get to go to his concert. Therefore, in the future, you're going to be more likely to clean your room. In another example, however, let's say the same antecedent, your room is dirty, but instead the behavior you engage in is going out with your friends instead of cleaning your room. So the consequence to this is that you have to take your sister to a Justin Bieber concert. This might be punishing for you because you do not like Justin Bieber, and therefore in the future you'd be less likely to go out with your friends instead of cleaning. In our third example, we have being left alone in the bedroom. So let's say in this first example, the antecedent is you've seen a lot of people today. You've had a busy day and you've seen lots of people, and the behavior that you engage in is yelling at your spouse. And the consequence to that is that he or she leaves you alone in the bedroom. This might be reinforcing for you because you've seen a lot of people and you want some alone time and you're just really tired. And so in the future, you might be more likely to yell at your spouse because that got you that alone time. But let's say, on the other hand, that the antecedent is that you've been lonely all day and you haven't seen a lot of people. But the behavior you engage in is that you make a rude comment to your spouse, and the consequence is again that they leave you alone in the bedroom. This one might be punishing for you because you've been lonely all day and you actually wanted to have that company. So therefore, in the future, you'd be less likely to make a rude comment. All right, our last example is with French fries. So for the first one, let's say that you have a child who is hungry, and the behavior that they engage in is asking for McDonald's. And the consequence is that they get McDonald's French fries. This would be reinforcing for them because they were hungry and they got some French fries, and that satisfied that hunger, and therefore in the future, they'd be more likely to ask for McDonald's. But let's say in another example, the antecedent is that the child is already at McDonald's, and the behavior that they engage in is ordering a chicken nuggets meal. And the consequence is that they get French fries. Now, this might be punishing for this child because let's say they don't like French fries, but they got them anyway because they ordered the meal. So therefore, in the future, they'd be less likely to engage in the behavior of ordering the meal. Next time, they might just order the chicken nuggets or order something else entirely to avoid that consequence of getting the French fries. And I believe that is our last example. So hopefully this was helpful and kind of explained the ABCs of reinforcement and punishment and helped you see a little bit how that works. Thank you.